conquest, vast empires, brutality, and raw power. These are all traits associated with Attila the Hun. Few figures in history managed to remain etched in the collective memory of generations, and even fewer spark the imagination like he does. As an expansionist, Attila was not only a formidable commander, but also an exceptional writer and soldier. Beyond the battlefield, he was politically sharp and remarkably intelligent. During his lifetime, he would push into Italy, Spain, Greece, and Hungary, carving out a legacy that began in Central Asia and surged westward. Raised alongside his older brother Bleda, Attila was destined to lead. Together, the two were trained not just to ride and fight on horseback, but also in archery, lassoing, swordplay, and horse care, skills essential in Hunnic society. In the world of the Huns, horses were more than animals. They were status symbols and lifelines. Used for both travel and warfare, horses were central to their way of life. Nearly every battle they fought was from horseback. Growing up, both Attila and Bleda were surrounded by stories of their legendary ancestors' daring feats, and soon enough, they too became involved in frequent skirmishes and raids into Roman lands. Little is known about Attila's early years. Most of what we do know comes from Latin and Greek sources, as the oral traditions of the Huns have not survived. However, there's strong evidence that Attila participated in Roman campaigns early on. These experiences exposed him to Roman military strategies and political tactics, preparing him for the larger conquests to come. During the brothers' rise to power, diplomatic tensions with the Byzantine Empire simmered. In 439 CE, near present-day Belgrade, Attila and Bleda met with imperial representatives sent by Emperor Theodosius II at a place called Margum. It was there that Byzantine and Hunnic envoys would establish the tone for all future negotiations. In true Hunnic fashion, Attila and Bleda insisted on conducting the meeting on horseback, refusing to dismount. The emissaries complied, an unspoken agreement that in Attila's presence, Hunnic customs would take precedence over Roman ones. This encounter would lead to the Treaty of Margus, signed a few years earlier in 435 CE. Under this treaty, the Byzantine Romans agreed not to engage in any trade or negotiations with enemies of the Huns. Attila and Bleda also demanded the return of refugees who had fled to the Roman side, including two who were related to them. Those two boys were executed to strengthen Attila and Bleda's claim to the Hunnic throne. The treaty also increased the annual tribute Rome paid the Huns, first established under their uncle Rugila, the former Hunnic king. Now, it doubled to 700 pounds of gold per year. In return, the Romans were promised protection from Hunnic raids and aggression. With this agreement in place, Rome shifted its military focus to Sicily, Carthage, and northern Africa, where Vandal threats were growing. To Emperor Theodosius, the tribute was a small price to pay for peace with the Huns. Initially, the Huns honored the agreement and withdrew quietly from Byzantine lands. But when Carthage fell to the Vandals, everything changed. With Roman legions stretched thin and retreating from Constantinople, Attila and Bleda saw their chance. They struck swiftly along the Danube, seizing the crucial port city of Constantia. They claimed the Byzantines had broken the Treaty of Margus when questioned about it. They also stated that not all the refugees had been returned and that the bishop had robbed and desecrated their ancestors' Hunnic tombs. The Huns demanded the bishop's surrender. Theodosius sent a general to investigate, but he kept the bishop in custody. Theodosius had doubts about the Huns' invasion potential. He disregarded the warnings of his council and proceeded with confidence in the treaty he had negotiated with Attila. For the next 2 years, Bleda and Attila ravaged the Byzantine Empire, plundering and causing chaos. They learned a few Roman tactics, like siege warfare, which allowed them to have a significant impact. They smashed through wealthy Roman cities, wiping them from the map, and came within 20 miles of Constantinople. Thanks to the wealth of the Byzantine Empire, Attila and Bleda returned to the Hungarian lowlands after Theodosius called his troops back from northern Africa. In the 2 years that followed, Bleda met a violent end. It remains unclear whether he died during a military raid or at the hands of his brother. Regardless, Attila rose from co-regent to sole ruler of the Hunnic Empire. It is only after Bleda's death that Attila's personal role in the Huns' triumph becomes clear. He had shared power with Bleda, but now Attila alone would lead the Huns. He shifted his focus to the west, setting his sights on Gaul and planning to seize Toulouse. At this time, Honoria, the sister of Western Roman Emperor Valentinian III, was imprisoned in Ravenna. Through her trusted servant, the eunuch Hyacinthus, she expressed her displeasure with her brother and pleaded for Attila's help in overcoming him. To resolve the issue, Attila decided to marry Honoria and claim half of the Western Roman Empire as a dowry, declaring himself emperor. He sent Hyacinthus back to Ravenna, where Valentinian discovered the plot. Valentinian had Hyacinthus tortured to get the full details and informed Attila that the marriage was not going to happen, that he had made a mistake. Attila disputed this, however, and continued his march toward Ravenna, determined to claim both his bride and his share of the Western Roman Empire. The first time Attila entered Gaul, his men took whatever they could find. One key difference between the Roman and Hunnic armies was the wage system. Roman soldiers received a fixed wage, while Hunnic soldiers were paid based on their plunder. In an unusual move, the Romans allied with Theodoric, king of the Visigoths, out of fear of Attila. The Huns, on the other hand, joined forces with the eastern Ostrogoths. In the end, they clashed in the Battle of the Catalonian Plains. Theodoric, the Visigothic king, died in the battle. The Romans and Visigoths withdrew the following day, and Attila's forces waited, unsure if it was a trap. Though the result of the battle remains uncertain, it's likely the conflict had far-reaching consequences. Meanwhile, Marcian, the new Byzantine emperor, stopped sending gold to the Huns. The earlier invasions of Attila and Bleda had caused a return of gold payments, but this was tripled. Enraged, Attila returned from his campaigns in Gaul and the Catalonian plains, humiliating the Byzantine ambassador by stripping, robbing, and frightening him, demanding the gold be returned. After the ambiguous outcome on the Catalonian plains, both Valentinian and Marcian, two Roman emperors, considered Attila weaker than before. In retaliation, Attila launched an assault on Italy, specifically targeting Ravenna, to claim his bride, Honoria. Valentinian was caught off guard by this unexpected attack. Inviting the Visigoths, his former allies, into the heart of his empire was out of the question. Though feared across Europe, the Huns left their mark in a way few could have imagined. In Aquileia, they laid siege to the prosperous port city with such brutality that it was completely destroyed by fire. All its inhabitants were slaughtered, and anything of value was looted. The ruins of Aquileia remain so elusive that modern archaeologists are still uncertain where the ancient city once stood. The few survivors are said to have gone on to establish Venice. The Huns, bound to their horses for battle, were unable to pursue invasions in regions dominated by water. After decimating Aquileia, they turned their sights on Pavia and Milan. From there, Valentinian made his escape, fleeing to Rome. After some time, Pope Leo I met with Attila in Mantua and somehow convinced him to return to Hungary, leaving Italy behind. The reason for Attila's sudden departure remains a mystery. Some speculate he left because the Huns had accumulated immense wealth in their raids, while Italy was suffering from a drought that led to food shortages. All these factors likely played a part in his decision. Meanwhile, Attila discovered that Emperor Marcian was making a move against his kingdom. His return to the Hungarian plains came with a new bride, Ildiko, a young and beautiful Hun woman. But the night of their wedding would prove to be Attila's last. He indulged heavily in food and drink, suffering a cerebral aneurysm that claimed his life in his sleep. Some rumors suggest he was murdered by his new bride, though this remains unconfirmed. Following Attila's death, the Hunnic Empire was divided among his three sons. Without Attila's strong leadership, the empire descended into chaos and eventually collapsed. Attila's charisma, his mysterious aura, and the fear he instilled in both allies and enemies had kept the empire united. It was his commanding presence that held the Huns together. The legacy of Attila's conquests has reverberated throughout history. His name still evokes fear and awe, a testament to the impact he had on Europe. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and giving it a like.